My sister's lawyer pressured me to hand over Dad's safe, as if I were stealing her inheritance. I said, "Just take it." Then I let her open it. While the whole family watched as she read the letter that nullified her entire inheritance. My name's Ethan. I'm 34. And last month, my estranged sister's attorney called to demand I hand over our father's safe deposit box like I was a gatekeeper, stealing her birthright. For as long as I can remember, Vanessa could turn any room into a stage. She was the golden child, a natural at switching tears on and off like light switches. A prodigy at stepping over the mess she made while pointing at me and saying, "He did it." When we were kids, if something broke, it somehow became my fault. If cash went missing, the family would sigh at me for being careless. While Vanessa sniffled in the corner and asked if I still loved her. That was the pattern. Year after year, she acted. I absorbed the blame. And the adults called it peace. I learned early to keep records, not because anyone asked for proof, but because I needed to convince myself I wasn't losing my mind. I remember a Saturday in May 2006. The sun burning through our thin curtains. Mom's purse had been left on the hall table. $30 disappeared. I said nothing. That night, Vanessa came into my room with a bag of glittery nail polish she couldn't have afforded and told me, "If you tell, you'll make Mom cry." I didn't tell. I pretended it didn't matter. But it did. And the pretending built a slow pressure inside me. I mistook for patience. By the time we reached our 20s, the stakes had real numbers. Memo lines. And dates. 3 incidents still rattle around my head like coins in a jar. The first September 14. 2001时, Vanessa texted me at 1:1:42 p.m. I still have the screenshot. It's just $500. I'll pay you back in 2 weeks. My card got flagged. I transferred the money before midnight. Because that's what you do for family. Right. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. When I finally asked, she sent back, "Don't be so dramatic. You know I'm good for it." She never paid. The second March 3. 2013. She was launching her second boutique. A different name for the same pop-up that kept folding and sprouting again. She pitched it to me like a startup, "Ethan. It's only $2. $400. To lock the lease. Investors are interested." I told myself it was an investment in family harmony. I wrote short-term loan on the memo line. Like that label could hold a boundary in place. 3 months later, the store was gone. The landlord called me because I had co-signed the short-term lease without realizing the fine print tied me in. And Vanessa posted beach photos with the caption, "Sometimes you have to treat yourself." The 3rd November 8. 2014. She called sobbing. "It's life and death." She said, 9,000 will clear it. I swear to you. I swear. She never said what it was. Only that people would come after her if she didn't pay. I told her no. For the first time, I drew a line. Silence poured down the line like cold water. "You're selfish," she said. Voice suddenly flat. "You've always been jealous of me." By the end of the week, she told anyone who would listen that I'd abandoned her in a crisis. That was the night the family chat split open, and all the sentimental glue dissolved. She cut me off. 10 years of almost no contact followed. Except for the occasional rumor, delivered by a relative with a tight smile. "Vanessa says you moved away because you couldn't handle responsibility." I kept living. I built a life that didn't require anyone to clap for me at dinner. I worked as a systems analyst. Which sounds dry. But I loved the order of it, cause. Effect. Data that didn't cry in the corner when you asked for proof. I rented a small place with a plant I kept alive and a kettle that whistled too loudly. And then, quietly, something changed. Dad started calling me on Thursdays. It began 7 years ago, with a hesitant, "You free for lunch?" and became our ritual. Every Thursday at noon. Same diner. Same booth near the window. Same order, his black coffee that tasted like a burnt apology, and my grilled cheese because I never outgrew comfort food. We didn't talk about Vanessa much. When we did, it was brief. Like stepping around a sinkhole, we both knew could swallow the table. He'd ask about my projects. He told me about his garden. Sometimes we sat in silence and watched buses sigh at the curb outside. It was simple. It was ours. And to the rest of the family, it didn't exist. Last month. Dad's heart stopped at 68. I found out from a Facebook post with a candle emoji and a paragraph of thoughts and prayers from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. No phone call. No message. Just the internet telling me my father was gone. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Until the candle felt like a joke. I called his number anyway. It rang twice and went to voicemail, his voice still warm and practical. Telling me to leave a message. I didn't. I sat on the edge of my bed with my coat on and my keys in my fist and let everything inside me tilt. At the funeral, Vanessa arrived 20 minutes late, like she had curated her entrance. She wore a black dress I recognized from a label that doesn't go on sale. And heels that could stab gravel. She cried loudly enough for the front rows to turn and pat their pockets for tissues. But her eyes were dry when she glanced my way. She looped a hand through the arm of a man I later learned was her new husband. Marcus. And trailed a lawyer in a navy suit who watched the room like a hawk that charged by the hour. She moved from person to person. Touching forearms. Whispering how much she'd loved Dad. Dropping lines like confetti, he relied on me. I was there every day. People nodded. They wanted a story they could hold without it slipping through their fingers. And Vanessa was always good at giving people what they thought they wanted. I stood near the back with a program that listed the hymns out of order. When Vanessa's gaze landed on me, her expression shifted the way skies do. Right before a storm. A tiny tension at the corners. A stillness too precise to be calm. She leaned toward the lawyer and said something behind her hand. They both looked at me like I'd wandered into a private club without a membership. After the service, she found a circle of relatives and pitched her voice just enough to carry. He only showed up for the money, she said, lifting her chin at me as if I were a stain on the carpet. He wasn't around for Dad's final months. I was the one handling everything. I didn't correct her. I stood with my hands in my pockets and watched the words land. Watched heads tilt in sympathetic angles. I could have said. Every Thursday. 7 years. Same booth. Bad coffee. I could have listed dates. Receipts. The way Dad laughed when the waitress called him Han. But I've learned that truth tossed into a crowd feels like a coin thrown from a balcony loud for a second. Then gone. So I kept quiet. 3 days later. A letter arrived from a firm I'd never heard of. The header was embossed like a seal on a fancy club. The language was brisk. Your father's safe deposit box contient un important estate document. As next of kin. My client, Vanessa Morton, has legal right to access it immediately. You are required to provide access within 48 hours or face legal action. It ended with a digital signature and a reminder that failure to comply would be noted. I read it twice and set it on my kitchen counter beside the salt grinder. The words didn't surprise me. Dad had mentioned the box a month before he died. On a Thursday that felt heavier than usual. He'd stirred his coffee without sugar and watched a school bus exhale at the light. Son, he said. Like he'd been rehearsing. I need you to promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone. Don't fight her. Just let her open the box. Let her see it herself. He didn't name Vanessa. He didn't have to. I asked him what was inside. He shook his head and smiled a tired, private smile. You'll understand. I should have known that smile meant a reckoning was already in motion. What they didn't know was that Dad had been building something harder to deny than tears and more durable than gossip a record. I held the lawyer's letter like it might combust, and then folded it carefully and slid it into a drawer with my utility bills. I emailed back. Not with a speech. Not with resistance. Just with a date and time: Tuesday. 1000 a.m. Central Trust Bank. I kept it simple. I kept it courteous. I kept my promise. That night, the group chat pinged like rain on a metal roof. A cousin posted a photo of flowers. An aunt typed a prayer. No one asked me how I was. Vanessa didn't write. She didn't need to. The letter from her attorney had already done the talking. I made pasta, I didn't taste, and let the kettle wail longer than usual. Somewhere between rinsing the pot and turning off the kitchen light. A thought settled into me like a stone at the bottom of a lake this time. I wasn't going to run around explaining myself. If I'd learned anything from 7 years of Thursday lunches, it was that silence can be a decision. Not a defeat. I went to bed with the lawyer's language echoing required. Immediately. Legal action, and woke before my alarm. The city sounded the same as any other morning bus breaks. A neighbor's dog. A radio, 2 apartments away. But the air had that tight pre-storm feeling. I packed a folder that felt unnecessary, grabbed my keys, and stood for a long second in the doorway, listening to my place hum. I remembered Dad at the booth. The way he'd warm his hands around the coffee, like it was winter, even in June. I remembered his voice, "Don't fight her. Let her open it." So, I would. And if there was a stage, I'd let her have it. If there was a spotlight, I'd let it find her face. I didn't know exactly what would happen at the bank on Tuesday. Only that something old was going to end and something honest was going to begin. I should have seen it coming years ago. Maybe I did, and I just needed the moment to catch up to me. Tuesday came gray and cool. The kind of morning that makes the city sound farther away. I left early on purpose and still felt late. Like time had shortened itself, just to watch me jog after it. Central Trust Bank sat on the corner of Maple and 3rd. Its brass clock still running 2 minutes fast. Dad used to grumble about that clock. They steal your time first. So you won't notice the fees. I touched the handle, half expecting it to be warm from his hand. Then walked inside. The lobby smelled faintly of paper, and the lemon cleaner banks use when they want to smell more important than they are. A woman at the desk looked up with a professional smile that wavered when she saw the folder under my arm. People who work in banks recognize the look of paper grief. I gave my name. She checked a list and nodded. "Mrs. Chen will be right with you," she said. Mrs. Chen had been there, as long as I could remember. She was the one who used to help Dad when he came in every few months to update something in that box. He trusted her, said she was one of the few people who actually reads what she signs. When she appeared now, her expression softened. "Ethan," she said quietly. "I'm sorry for your loss." She shook my hand in both of hers. Steady and warm. "Your father spoke highly of you." "Thank you," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. "You're early," she noted, glancing at the clock. "That's usually a good sign. Would you like water before we start?" I shook my head. "I'll wait here." She led me to a small side office, glass walls, mountain painting behind her desk. Everything too clean for comfort. My chair squeaked when I sat down. Mrs. Chen opened a ledger and spoke in her even, careful tone. "Your sister's representative called yesterday to confirm. They requested a private room. But as you know, both key holders must be present for access. Once the box is opened, its contents belong to the estate. I can stay as witness or step out, depending on your request." "That's fine," I said. "I'll follow whatever procedure you need." She gave me a faint smile that seemed to carry more meaning than her words. "Your father was very precise. He never left things to chance." At 007, 7 minutes late. 2 minutes fast by the bank's clock. Vanessa's entrance arrived like a performance she'd rehearsed. The first sound was her heels striking the tile, followed by the sharp click of a briefcase clasp. She didn't come alone. Her lawyer, Daniel Reed, walked in first. His tie the exact color of a courtroom. Behind him came Marcus, her husband, and 2 cousins, Gabe and Lila, clutching phones like witness passes. Vanessa herself was in a fitted black dress and a pearl necklace that could have paid half a mortgage. Her perfume announced her before her voice did. "Ethan," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You look casual." "Wasn't sure there was a dress code," I replied. Marcus stood a little behind her. Unreadable. Daniel extended a business card. "I'm Daniel Reed, representing Mrs. Morton." He emphasized the married name like it granted new authority. "We appreciate your cooperation today." I nodded once. "Let's just get this done." Mrs. Chen appeared with her clipboard and keys. "We'll need signatures from both parties acknowledging joint access to box 317, she said. "After that, we'll proceed to the vault." Vanessa signed with an elegant swirl, like she was autographing her own movie poster. I wrote my name slowly, each letter deliberate. Daniel and the cousins added their witness lines. When we stepped through the secured door, the noise of the bank faded into the hum of ventilation and polished shoes. The hallway grew colder as we walked toward the vault, a long corridor lined with framed photos of city landmarks that pretended to be art. The air was heavy with the scent of metal and time. Mrs. Chen entered a code and spoke into the intercom. Shen. Access for Morton. Box 317. A buzz answered. The thick door groaned open with mechanical authority. Inside. Rows of identical gray boxes stretched from floor to ceiling. Each with a number and lock. Mrs. Chen led us to a table at the center. We'll do this carefully, she said. I have the bank's key. Mr. Hale. You have your father's key. I took it from my pocket, the small brass key he'd given me in an envelope months ago. Keep this somewhere safe, he'd said. I had. It still felt too light for what it carried. She nodded. Insert both keys. Turn together. We did. The click was tiny but final. She slid the long metal drawer free and placed it on the table lined with dark felt. Its weight sounded heavier than it looked. Then she stepped back. Vanessa's lawyer spoke up. For the record, he said. My client, Mrs. Morton, is the next of kin and intends to take possession of any estate documents contained within. Mrs. Chen raised a hand slightly. Before we proceed, both parties must agree that I make a certified copy of any official documents for the estate file. You may both review and sign acknowledgement after. I nodded immediately. Agreed. Vanessa hesitated but then gave a curt nod. Fine. Mrs. Chen's calm returned. Then you may open it. Vanessa turned to Marcus first. As if collecting reassurance. He gave a small nod. Go ahead. Her gaze swept over the rest of us. Pausing on me. You ready to see what Dad really left behind? She asked. Tone smooth. Rehearsed. I didn't answer. I just looked at the box. She gripped the lid. Her manicured nails glinting in the sterile light. The air in the vault tightened. Even the fluorescent hum seemed to hold its breath. When the lid lifted, we all leaned in slightly. Daniel instinctively. The cousins out of curiosity. Marcus, out of obligation. Inside was less than everyone expected. A single cream-colored envelope lay perfectly centered on the dark felt. The handwriting across it was unmistakable, my father's. Neat and controlled. Letters pressed down with patience to my family. Nothing else. No folders. No stacks of papers. No keys to hidden property. Just that envelope. For a long moment, no one moved. The sound of the air conditioner filled the room. Vanessa frowned. That can't be all. She looked at Mrs. Chen as though she'd misplaced the real treasure. There should be more deeds. Account summaries. Stocks. He owned property. Mrs. Chen's tone was neutral. The contents of box 317 are exactly as your father left them. Mrs. Morton. Vanessa laughed once short. Brittle. Maybe this is just an instruction letter. There's probably a second box. Daniel adjusted his glasses. Let's read it first. Her eyes flashed. I don't need your permission. She tore open the flap. Paper slid free several pages. Thick. Folded once. Sealed at the bottom, with a notary stamp. Dad's full name. Witnesses. The same date. Mrs. Chen had mentioned when we signed. It was real. Legal. Undeniable. Vanessa began reading aloud. Her tone almost mocking at first. To my children. Vanessa and Ethan. Then her voice slowed. The next sentence didn't come out clean. She scanned ahead. Eyes darting faster. Daniel leaned closer to see the page. I saw his expression change, eyebrows tightening. Lips parting slightly. He took one step back. Silent. What she asked. Irritation. Creeping in. What does it say? He didn't answer. Vanessa's voice cracked. She kept reading quietly now. Only for herself. But the words carried across the table anyway. The color drained from her face. I didn't move. I knew that silence, the one that comes right before a truth, too big to swallow. Her hand began to tremble. The edges of the letter shook like something alive. Then she whispered. Almost inaudible. No. This isn't right. The rest of the room waited. Mrs. Chen stood still. Eyes lowered. Hands folded. And I realized in that breathless quiet this was exactly how Dad planned it, not with noise, Not with anger, but with truth waiting patiently to be seen. Inside the metal drawer was nothing that fit her story. Just one envelope. It lay perfectly centered on the black felt lining. Heavy cream paper, sealed with the kind of care my father always used when something mattered. His handwriting stretched across the front in blue ink even. Deliberate the words. No deeds. No bonds. No folders. No stacks of cash. Just that envelope. For a moment, silence filled the vault. You could hear the fluorescent hum of the lights above and the slow tick of Mrs. Chen's pen against her clipboard. Vanessa blinked first. That's it, she asked. Her voice thin with disbelief. There's supposed to be more. She turned sharply toward Mrs. Chen. You're sure this is the right box? Maybe you made a mistake. Mrs. Chen's tone didn't change. Box 317. Assigned to Mr. Robert Hale. Opened with both registered keys. Everything inside is here. That's impossible. Vanessa muttered. Laughter bubbling out too quickly. He owned property. Stocks. He must have moved the documents. Maybe he left them with his lawyer. Your father's attorney confirmed no other boxes exist. Mrs. Chen said gently. Perhaps this letter will explain. Vanessa hesitated. Then tore the envelope open with a flick that sounded louder than it should have. The flap ripped clean. Inside were several folded pages. Cream-colored. Notary stamp gleaming faintly in the vault light. The seal was official. Real. She unfolded the first page. Her tone at first was casual. Even smoke. To my children. Vanessa and Ethan. Then. Almost instantly. Her expression faltered. The next words caught in her throat. She swallowed. Tried again. This letter is to be opened after my passing. It explains what I could not say while alive. Vanessa. You have been taking from me since you were 19. At first. Small amounts. $50 from the kitchen drawer. Then checks written in my name. You said you'd pay it back. You never did. Her eyes darted faster. Scanning. The color in her face drained with every line. When the credit cards appeared. I blamed myself for trusting you. When the second mortgage was filed with my signature forged. I almost lost the house your mother and I built. I paid it off to save our name. Then sold that home and moved into an apartment where no one would find the paperwork you left behind. I delayed my retirement. Paid your debt 7 times. Sold my car twice. And told no one. I thought one day you would stop. You never did. Vanessa's hand started to shake. He was confused. She said suddenly. Voice brittle. He didn't know what he was writing. No one believed her. The evidence was too detailed. Exact amounts. Dates. Even account numbers. My father had catalogued it all. Her lawyer. Daniel Reed. Leaned closer to read. But after a single glance. Stepped back and rubbed his forehead. She read on. Voice trembling. You convinced the family that your brother abandoned you. In truth. You've been stealing my life one signature at a time. I write this from sadness. Not anger. You took from me years I could have spent in peace. I leave you nothing. Because you've already taken everything. Ethan is the sole executor and beneficiary of my estate. He is the one who came every Thursday. Not for money, but for coffee and conversation. He is the one who truly loved me. Her voice broke. She stopped reading. The page fluttered from her hand to the table. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that only truth can make. Marcus finally spoke. Voice low. Almost uncertain. Vanessa. Is that real? She turned toward him. Eyes glassy. He's lying. He must have been manipulated. She pointed at me with a shaking hand. You did this. You made him write it. I kept my tone steady. Dad wrote it by himself. He told me you'd open it. He wanted you to see. Daniel closed his briefcase quietly. Mrs. Morton. He said. Avoiding her eyes. The document is notarized and witnessed. It's legally binding. Her voice cracked. You're supposed to represent me. I represent facts. He said simply. And turned toward the door. Good day. He left. The click of his shoes fading down the corridor. The cousins. Gabe and Lila. exchanged glances. Whispering. Lila looked pale. I need air. She murmured. They slipped away without another word. Marcus still longer. His jaw was tight. His hands clenched in his pockets. You told me your father depended on you. He said softly. You said Ethan cut you out of his life. I didn't mean to. Vanessa stammered. He just dad always he exaggerated things. Marcus took a slow step back. He didn't exaggerate notarized documents. Then he walked out. Leaving the vault door half open behind him. Now only 3 of us remained: Vanessa, Mrs. Shane, and me. Vanessa stared at the paper on the table. Mascara streaking down her cheeks. The color gone from her face. You knew. She whispered. You let me embarrass myself. I nodded once. Dad wanted everyone to see it for themselves. She pressed her hands over her mouth. Trying to breathe. The pages crinkled under her fingers. He hated me. She said. No. I answered quietly. He loved you too long. Mrs. Shane? Calm as ever. Stepped forward. Mr. Hale. She said softly. Would you like me to make certified copies for your records? Yes. I said. Please. Vanessa lifted her head sharply. You can't just make copies of that, it's private. Mrs. Chen met her gaze. Unflinching. Both keyholders consented to documentation for the estate file before opening. That's the procedure. Vanessa didn't reply. She just stared at the floor. Mrs. Chen took the papers carefully, slid them into a transparent sleeve, and left the vault. The heavy door closed behind her with a soft mechanical hiss. Vanessa collapsed into the chair beside the table, covering her face. Her shoulders shook. But no tears came. Just sound low. Hollow. Like a broken metronome. After a moment, she spoke without looking up. You think this makes you better than me? Isayad? No. It just makes things true. She didn't answer. A minute later. Mrs. Chen returned. The papers now sealed inside a folder. Mr. Hale. She said gently. These are for you. A copy will be held with the estate records. You may both sign acknowledgement here. Vanessa didn't even reach for the pen. I signed. Mrs. Chen gave me the folder. Then, in the kindest voice I'd ever heard in a place like that, she said, Your father wanted peace. He prepared for this moment. I nodded. He always did. When I turned to leave, Vanessa's voice stopped me. It was barely more than a whisper. He was supposed to love me more. I looked back. He did. I said quietly. That's why it took him so long to stop. Then I walked out of the vault. Each step echoing against the steel walls. Outside. The air felt too bright. The city noises, car horns. Traffic. Conversation sounded like another planet after that silence. I stepped onto the sidewalk. Sunlight sharp against the concrete. And realized my father's plan had worked exactly as he intended. He hadn't left a fortune. He'd left the truth. And somehow, that was heavier than gold. The story didn't end in the vault. Truth rarely does, it just starts echoing. By that evening, the letter had already found its way through the family like electricity. I hadn't told anyone what happened. But I didn't have to. Gabe and Lila had left the bank pale as ghosts. And by dinner, the group chat was buzzing again. At first, it was cautious. Messages I heard something about the will, then sharper ones. Is it true? What Dad wrote, and finally, apologies disguised as curiosity. I turned my phone face down on the counter. I didn't answer a single one. At 9:00 p.m. The first call came from an unknown number. I ignored it. Then another. And another. By midnight, the missed call list had hit 73. All from the same person. Vanessa. I watched the screen light up over and over. Her name glowing in white, against the dark. She left voicemail, some pleading. Some furious. You set me up. He didn't mean any of that. We can fix this if you call me back. You think you're better than me, you're nothing without me. Her words blurred together until they stopped sounding like language. Just noise and regret trying to crawl back through a door that had finally closed. I didn't answer. Not once. Instead, I sat in the quiet and listened to the city outside. Kerspest. Someone laughed on the street. A dog barked. The sound carried up through my open window. It felt like the world was already moving on and I was finally allowed to. 2. The next morning. The world didn't look different. But it felt cleaner. I made coffee. Fed my plant. Checked my phone. Half the family had texted. A few cousins sent messages that started with "we didn't know" and ended with "we're sorry." One even wrote, "Vanessa's saying you manipulated Dad." But nobody's buying it. I didn't bother correcting anything. The truth didn't need defending anymore. By noon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Marcus was standing there. He looked like he hadn't slept. His suit was wrinkled. Tea loose. Expression hollow. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded and stepped into the hallway. Neither of us sat. The air smelled faintly of detergent from the laundry room down the hall. "She hasn't stopped crying," he said quietly. "She keeps saying you planned this. That you wanted to humiliate her." I met his eyes. "I didn't plan anything. Dad did." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah. That's what I figured." He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "She's different now. She doesn't yell. Doesn't talk. Just keeps asking what she's supposed to do next." I didn't have an answer for that. He must have seen it in my face because he gave a small nod. Like he already knew. "Anyway, I thought you should know. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. I believed her. Too. Most people did." I said. "She made it easy." He gave a sad half-smile. Then turned to leave. Before he walked away, he paused. "You really went to lunch with your dad every week? Every Thursday?" I said. He nodded once more and left. The hallway door closed behind him with a sound that felt final. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I opened the small wooden box Dad had given me on my 25th birthday. Inside were scraps of memory ticket stubs. Old receipts. A photo of us fixing the porch light back when the house still existed. Before the mortgage and the lies. Underneath was a diner napkin folded in half. Yellowed from age. On the front, his handwriting. For Thursdays that never got boring. On the back, faded ink I'd never noticed before. People reveal themselves when they think no one is watching. Keep watching. I sat there a long time. Tracing the words with my thumb. He'd known everything. Every lie. Every debt. Every forged signature. And instead of fighting her, he'd chosen patience. He'd let the truth wait until it couldn't be ignored. That kind of restraint wasn't weakness. It was strength I didn't understand until that moment. By the weekend, the fallout had gone public. Vanessa's boutique, the third one, shut down. Investors pulled out. Marcus moved into a hotel for space. Her social media accounts went private. Someone sent me a screenshot of her last post before she deleted it. A black square with white text. "Not everyone deserves forgiveness." The comments were brutal. People she used to charm turning on her one by one. I didn't reply. I didn't even smile. There was no satisfaction in watching her crumble. Just quiet inevitability. Truth doesn't need applause. It just waits. That Sunday, I went back to the diner. The same booth by the window was open. Like it had been saving my spot. Lydia, the waitress, looked up from refilling coffee at another table. "Been a while." "Ethan," she said softly. "Yeah," I said. "I needed some bad coffee." She smiled and poured it into Dad's old cup. The chipped one she'd kept behind the counter for years. "Still your booth?" she said. I nodded. The seat across from me was empty. But it didn't feel lonely this time. It felt earned, like silence finally had meaning. Outside, the city light shifted through the blinds, painting the table in stripes of gold and shadow. I unfolded my copy of Dad's letter, not to prove anything, but to read the last line again. "He's the one who actually loved me." The words still hit the same way they had in the vault. They weren't about inheritance. They were about recognition, about finally being seen. I whispered, "You got the last word, Dad." and for the first time in years. The coffee didn't taste bitter. I didn't see Vanessa again after that week. The calls stopped. The messages stopped. The noise stopped. What replaced it wasn't emptiness, it was space. Space to breathe. Space to build something that wasn't measured against her shadow. I didn't inherit wealth. But I inherited clarity. And that felt like enough. A month passed. Long enough for the gossip to fade. But not long enough for the silence to feel ordinary. People I hadn't spoken to in years began calling again. This time, there were no accusations, just hesitations wrapped in guilt. We should have listened to you. Ethan. Your father was lucky to have you. I can't believe she lied for that long. I didn't know what to say to any of them. Forgiveness isn't something you hand out like receipts. It takes space. And I finally had some. At work. Life settled into a quiet rhythm. I stayed late most nights. The office half lit and still. Spreadsheets didn't lie. Numbers never gaslighted you. They just were tidy. Honest. Accountable. It was the first time in a long time that peace didn't feel like absence. It felt like air. The first Thursday I forgot about the diner came as a surprise. I was halfway home when my hands turned the wheel without thinking. Steering toward that old corner anyway. The neon sign still flickered OPN instead of open. Lydia spotted me the second I walked in. Thought you moved away. She said. Wiping her hands on her apron. Almost did. I replied. Guess I missed the coffee. She smiled and poured it into Dad's chipped mug, the same one she kept behind the counter. Just in case. I sat in the old booth by the window. Same view of Maple Street. Same smell of burnt toast and bacon grease. But the silence across from me didn't ache anymore. It just existed. I looked down at the coffee and thought of Dad the way he'd cradle the cup like it held the answer to something he didn't want to ask out loud. He'd gotten his answer now. So had I. A few weeks later, the landlord from Dad's building called. They were cleaning out the last storage lockers on the top floor and had found a small wooden box with my father's name on it. I went to pick it up on a cloudy Saturday morning. The locker was dusty and narrow. Stacked with old furniture no one wanted. The box itself was simple walnut wood. Brass latch. The initials R. H. Carved by hand. Inside were photos. A rusted watch. And a slim notebook wrapped in a rubber band. I sat on the edge of a crate and opened it. The first few pages were lists, debts paid. Receipts. Old repair notes. But halfway through, the handwriting changed. Slower. More thoughtful. Thursday. March 10. Ethan asked about the mortgage again. I told him it's handled. He looked worried. He gets that from me. A few pages later. April 7. He ordered the grilled cheese again. Complained the coffee was worse than usual. I laughed. I'll miss that sound when it's gone. And finally, near the back. May 18. I hope he forgives me for making him carry this weight. But he needs to see what truth looks like when it stands on its own. I closed the notebook and sat there. The air thick with dust and memory. That was who Dad was, steady. Deliberate. Patient to the point of pain. He hadn't written that letter out of anger. He'd written it out of love. Because he knew the only thing stronger than a lie was the truth that waited it out. I pressed the notebook to my chest and whispered. You did it. Dad. You finally made them see. Weeks later. I visited his grave for the first time since the funeral. The cemetery was quiet. The air still. I brought a diner napkin with me, the kind we used to scribble jokes on while waiting for the check. On it, I'd written just one line. I kept my promise. I placed it on the stone and sat there for a while. Watching sunlight filter through the trees. There was no heaviness in the quiet now, just something grounded. Still. Whole. For the first time in years. I didn't feel like the boy defending himself. I felt like the man Dad had trusted to finish what he couldn't. When I finally stood, I looked back once and whispered. You can rest now. I'll take it from here. People still ask me if I regret letting her open the box. Sometimes I think about that moment, her face. The silence. The truth, landing like a stone in still water. And every time, I come to the same answer: no. If I hadn't let her open it, the lie would have lived forever. Dad knew that. He'd spent a lifetime covering her mistakes. But in the end, He wanted the truth to speak louder than forgiveness ever could. That was his justice. And in a way, it became mine. Now, every Thursday, I still stop by the diner. Lydia doesn't ask who I'm waiting for anymore. She just fills the mug and leaves me be. Sometimes I read. Sometimes, I sit in silence. Every so often, I catch myself smiling for no reason. Like someone just told me a secret I already knew. Maybe Dad's there. Maybe he never really left. Either way, the seat across from me doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. Justice doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes, it looks like silence where lies used to live. And that silence, it's the loudest peace I've ever known. Story 2. My GoFundMe for chemo barely hit $60 in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, my mom posted a video sobbing over Luna, my sister's husky, begging people to help save our baby's leg. That video hit 200 Kelvin's views in 3 days. Donations poured in like rain in July. By the end of the week, Luna had $15. 432. Meanwhile, I was Googling how to stretch expired prednisone. I'm not telling this story for pity. I'm telling it so people stop romanticizing family as something sacred because mine chose a dog over me. And not in some metaphorical, I feel neglected way. I mean literally. Financially. Publicly. And unapologetically chose a Siberian husky's ligament over my ability to breathe without collapsing. Let's rewind. My name's Julia. I'm 29. A freelance book editor. I was diagnosed with granulomatosis with polyangiitis last year, a rare autoimmune disease that, left untreated, basically eats away at your lungs and kidneys. It's treatable. But the meds are brutal. And insurance only covers a fraction because of the Tier 4 pricing. My monthly out-of-pocket was $1. 935. I made about $2. 200 on good months. I tried to hide how bad things got. I started skipping doses. Stopped telling people when I fainted. But when my rheumatologist warned I'd need surgery if things didn't improve. Ipanikt. So, I did what sick people do in America. I made a GoFundMe. It took 3 hours to write. I cried halfway through. Trying to sound hopeful. Not disparity. I posted it quietly. Just a link on Facebook with a caption. This isn't easy for me. But I need help. Anything at all. Crickets. I mean, some friends from high school donated like $10 here. $25 there. But from family, not a dime. Not even a share. Not even a thinking of you. My mom saw it. I know because she liked a picture I posted 2 hours later. My sister Olivia never even acknowledged it. At first, I told myself maybe they just didn't see it. Facebook's algorithm or whatever. But a week later, I brought it up to my mom directly, softly. Like a question. Hey. I know this is awkward. But did you happen to see the fundraiser I posted? She was standing at her sink, scrubbing coffee mugs like they had insulted her. I did. She said. But Julia, you're an adult. We've helped a lot over the years. At some point, you've got to figure it out on your own. Let me pause here and say I'm not someone who's mooched off my family. I moved out at 18. Paid my own way through community college. And freelanced to support myself through every medical disaster life threw at me. But apparently, the one time I ask for help for something that might literally kill me, I get the bootstrap speech. That conversation ended with me nodding and smiling while my insides curled up and died a little. I didn't expect money. Not really. But silence. That cut deeper than any copay. And then came Luna. Olivia's husky. 2 years old. She's cute. Loud. Probably has more Instagram followers than I do. 3 weeks after my fundraiser flopped, Luna chased a squirrel into traffic and tore her ACL. A doggy orthopedic emergency. Olivia was devastated. Cue the full family. PR machine. My mom wrote a handwritten caption on Facebook. Our sweet Luna needs surgery to walk again. This pup is our world. Please help us bring back her zoomies. There was a video montage. Music. Filtered photos. Olivia crying. My stepdad holding the leash like it was a fallen soldier's flag. They even printed custom t-shirts number Run Luna Run. It was the most passionate campaign I've ever seen. And it worked. Luna's GoFundMe hit $5 Kelvins in the first day. $10 Kelvins by day 3. People donated in memory of their own dogs. Left messages like, "She reminds me of my pup Bella who passed." Praying for Luna's recovery. Celebrities shared it. Olivia got featured on a local news story titled, "Saving Luna, a Community Comes Together." Meanwhile, I was in the ER with chest pain from pleuritis. I called my mom. She sent a heart emoji. I watched her comment on Luna's fundraiser. "Thank you for your kindness. Every dollar means the world." That night, I deleted my fundraiser. Not out of bitterness. Out of clarity. If your own family won't invest in your survival but will build a movement for your sister's dog, that's not a family. That's a branding campaign with shared DNA. I wanted to scream. But instead, I stayed quiet. I laid in bed, listening to my own breath rattle like broken machinery, and whispered to the ceiling, "I get it now. I really get it. But don't worry. This isn't a tragedy. Not yet. Because something inside me changed that week. A rage. Yes. But also a resolve. If I was going to die, it wasn't going to be politely. If I was going to survive, it wasn't going to be quietly. And that's when the idea hit me. If my family didn't want the world to know how they really treat me, too bad. I was done covering for people who'd let me rot while crying over a dog. The next day, I made a Reddit post. It started like this. AITA for being mad that my family raised $15 Kelvins for my sister's dog, but refused to donate $10 to my GoFundMe for chemo. The post went up at 9:42 p.m. By midnight, it had over 800 upvotes. By morning it was on the front page of R Divided by Ada. With flares like "asshole enthusiast alert," and "what the fuck did I just read?" I never expected the internet to care. But apparently, my story, "Sick Daughter, Denied Chemo Support, While Golden Child's Husky Gets a Viral Fundraiser," was exactly the kind of injustice Reddit lives to roast. And roast. They did. Top comment. Not the family choosing Luna the Labrador over Julia the human. Jesus Christ. Second highest. Imagine dying while your mom prints Save the Dog shirts. I'd haunt them through Alexa. Another user posted a side-by-side meme, Julia's GoFundMe $60. No shares Luna's GoFundMe, 15 Kelvin. Sponsored by Guilt and Golden Retriever Privilege. People weren't just mad. They were furious. It tapped into something bigger, how women are expected to suffer quietly. How chronic illness is invisible until it's too late. How families use support as a weapon. By noon, I had over 300 DMs. Some were horrifying stories like mine. People with lupus, Crohn's, rare cancers. All saying, "I get it. I lived it." Others were offers. One nurse offered me discounted access to a clinic. A TikTok creator wanted to share my story. Someone anonymously donated $5,000 with the note, "Efe, Kaluna. Fight for your life." I sat in my room, wrapped in a blanket, sobbing, not out of sadness this time, but disbelief. Strangers saw me. Not just saw, but believed. Validated. Fought for. Meanwhile, my family, they were about to blow a gasket. The meltdown started with Olivia's text. "What the fuck did you post online? Take it down. Now." I ignored it. Then came the group text from my mom. All caps. "You are humiliating this family over a dog. Apologize or you are cut off." Cut off from what? Exactly. The emotional neglect buffet. The holiday guilt train. Then came the Facebook war. Olivia posted a teary selfie with Luna. Captioned, "So hurt and blindsided. Never thought my own sister would weaponize my dog's injury for clout. Luna is family. She deserved love too." Cue the sympathy brigade in the comments. "So sorry you're dealing with this, dogs are family. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Stay strong. You're a good for mama." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Reddit had my back. One user found Olivia's TikTok and stitched it with a dramatic reading of my original post. Voice shaking with rage. Another made a timeline chart. May 12 Julia posts fundraiser, ignored. May 18. Luna tears ACL, entire town mobilized. May 24. Julia faints at work. No calls returned. May 28 Reddit burns everything down. That chart got 1.2 million views. 3 days later. A local news outlet, Picked it up. They blurred names, but kept the details. Headline: Viral post exposes medical neglect within family fundraiser drama. My mom called me. I let it ring out. She left a voicemail. Her voice was calm, too calm. Julia. This has gone too far. You're sick. You're not thinking clearly. We're trying to forgive you. But you need to apologize before we lose any more respect in this community. I replayed that message 5 times. Forgive me, for what not dying quietly. Later that week, I got a call from my Aunt Dad's sister. We'd never been close. She'd moved to Oregon years ago. But she said she saw the article. Saw my name. Julia. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I can't undo what they did. But I want to help. I'll cover your surgery. I nearly dropped the phone. You don't have to, I want to. She cut in. Your dad would have been ashamed of them. Turns out, she and my dad had fallen out with the rest of the family years ago over Olivia. A familiar pattern. Huh. The money came through that same week. I booked my pre-op appointment. Paid off 2 credit cards. Bought myself a burrito. An actual burrito. Not dollar menu. Sadness. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. But the drama wasn't over. Because Reddit's not just a platform, it's a boomerang. And it was about to circle back. Someone from Olivia's yoga studio messaged me anonymously. Hey. I know this is weird. But I teach your sister's Thursday class. She came in crying. Said her career's over. The studio's being harassed. Apparently, a few Redditors had politely inquired why a business that sponsored a $15 Kelvin's dog fundraiser had done nothing for their employees' medically fragile sibling. Within hours, her yoga studio shut down its IG page. The studio posted a final story. We don't condone online harassment. Peace and compassion matter most. Olivia lost her job. My mom lost 3 Facebook friends and had to delete Twitter. My stepdad took a social media detox. And me. I was accused of canceling them. But here's the thing, I never named them. Never linked their pages. Never said Olivia's full name. I just told my story. And people listened. If that's cancel culture, good. Let it cancel the silence. Let it cancel the gaslighting. Let it cancel the expectation that sick women should suffer in silence while their families pose with t-shirts and puppies. At my next doctor's appointment, the nurse asked how I was paying. I told her I wasn't sure who to thank first. Reddit. Or Luna. She laughed. And for the first time in a long time, I did too. Surgery day. That morning, I stared at my reflection longer than usual. My face looked thinner. My eyes a little sunken. Like I'd aged 6 months in too. But there was something steadier behind my tired expression, something I hadn't seen in a long time. Resolve. I didn't have a ride to the hospital. My aunt offered to fly in. But I didn't want her spending money on airfare after everything she'd already done. So I took an Uber. Told the driver I was getting a minor thing fixed. He said he hoped it wasn't my heart. I just smiled. Funny. I used to think it was. The hospital was clean and cold. Sterile in the way all hospitals are like, hope has to be bleached before it enters. I changed into the gown. Tied it in the back. Lay down on the gurney. A nurse named Ellie checked my vitals and asked if anyone would be joining me. I shook my head. No family. Not the kind that shows up. I said. She didn't pry. But then. They came. At exactly 9:57 a.m. 10 minutes before I was scheduled to be wheeled in. The door opened and in walked Olivia. Behind her was my mom. And behind her was my stepdad. Holding a bouquet of blue hydrangeas, like they made up for a year of silence. I thought I was hallucinating. Julia. My mom said. Like we'd spoken yesterday. We wanted to be here. Olivia added quickly. Her eyes were red. And not just from crying, more like she hadn't slept. To support you. To make things right. I blinked at them. Said nothing. My hands were already hooked up to an IV. Cold fluid, dripping into my veins. My chest hurt. My stomach was knots. And now I had to process this sudden Broadway revival of We're a Family after all. You ignored me for months. I said slowly. You raised money for a dog. I almost died. You embarrassed us. My mom snapped. Before catching herself. I mean, you didn't have to post all that online. There it was. The mask slipping. They weren't here out of love. They were here for optics. Where's the camera? I asked flatly. Is this for a TikTok comeback tour? Olivia's face flushed. I get it. Okay, I messed up. I wasn't thinking. I didn't realize how serious it was. I was just trying to help Luna. And I was just trying to breathe. I cut in. Vite sûr. Let's talk about the dog. The room went still. Even the beeping monitor paused, like it was holding its breath. My mom sat down at the edge of the bed like she still had that right. We're here now. Isn't that what matters? I turned to look her dead in the eye. No. What matters is that you weren't there then. When I couldn't afford meds. When I passed out at work. When I thought about giving up. Her face went pale. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was done. They left before the surgery. No dramatic goodbye. No teary hugs. Olivia tried to squeeze my hand before she walked out. I didn't let her. They had shown up at the finish line and expected applause for the bare minimum. But this wasn't about redemption. This was about recovery. Mine, not theirs. The surgery went well. 3 hours under. I woke up sore. Groggy. But breathing easier than I had in months. Ellie, the nurse, gave me a wink. You did good. Kid. A few hours later. My aunt arrived. She brought me proper socks. A charger. And a tub of my favorite soup from the place downtown. She didn't try to talk about what happened. She just sat next to me and watched old episodes of Chopped while I drifted in and out of pain meds. That's what real support looks like. 2 days later. I was discharged. I went home with new meds. A better prognosis. And zero intention of ever speaking to my mother again. But. Of course. They weren't done. A week post-op. I got a handwritten letter in the mail. It was from my mom. It started like this. We've all made mistakes. But you have to understand how hard this was for us. Too. And ended like this. You need to take some accountability for how you hurt this family. I almost laughed. Imagine nearly dying. And someone still needing you to make them the victim. I posted the letter on Reddit. Not for vengeance. For proof. Because too many people, especially sick women, are gaslit into thinking they're overreacting. Into believing that neglect is their fault. Reddit got it. Again. The top comment said. This is like getting hit by a car, and then being told you were standing too close to the road. Absolute Olympic-level gaslighting. Another user DM'd me. You don't owe them forgiveness just because they shared DNA. And I didn't. But I owed myself something. A clean break. A peaceful breath. A future not haunted by what-ifs, and maybe this time they'll change. So, I blocked my mom. Again. Olivia sent one last message. You'll regret cutting us off when we're gone. I replied. I already mourned you. And I'm still alive. Funny how that works. Sometimes, survival isn't about beating an illness. Sometimes it's about walking away from what's killing you, even when it looks like love. 3 weeks post-surgery. I started sleeping again. Not the half asleep. Alert to every ache, kind of sleep. I mean the full. Dreamless kind. The kind where you wake up without a weight on your chest. Emotional or otherwise. I was healing. Not just physically. But from years of being the emotional janitor of my family, cleaning up their guilt. Mopping up their silence. Swallowing my own needs. Like they were selfish luxuries. I didn't just block them. I grieved them. And then, I moved on. I took a new freelance contract with a publisher in Seattle. One of the editors had seen my Reddit post and reached out privately. Said she liked my voice. Said I reminded her of her sister. I worked on a memoir about surviving trauma. How's that for poetic full circle? I joined a book club. Bought a stupidly expensive scented candle. Fostered a cat named Beans who hated everyone but me. And I started therapy. Because it turns out, when your family teaches you love is transactional. Support is conditional. And your pain is inconvenient. You've got some things to untangle. For a while. Things were quiet. Then came the YouTube video. I got tagged in a comment one afternoon. Is this your sister? I clicked the link. Olivia. On a podcast. Titled When Family Cancels You, My Side of the Story. Thumbnail her with wet eyes. Luna in her lap. Tissue in hand. I laughed. Out loud. Alone. For a full 10 seconds. The video was 42 minutes long. I watched it with a bowl of popcorn like it was Real Housewives. She painted herself as the misunderstood sister. Claimed she'd always loved me. That I'd twisted the narrative. That Luna was a therapy dog and basically family. That she didn't realize how sick I was because I didn't communicate clearly. Julia always kept things to herself. I wish she had just told us how serious it was. That line hit different when you remember I literally posted a public fundraiser titled "I need help with my chemo." But the kicker? She didn't have to drag us online. That was cruel. I've gotten threats. People told me to choke on a dog leash. Okay. That's awful. No one deserves that. But actions have consequences. And so do inactions. Comments under the video were mixed. Some people bought it. Families fight. Move on. Cancel culture is out of control. She looks sincere. But the top comment. Imagine being more upset about your online reputation than your sister's literal life. Priorities. Much. Reddit caught wind within hours. Someone cross-posted with a savage title, "Golden Child tries a PR spin after real sister nearly dies." Within 24 hours. Olivia took the video down. She texted me again. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just trying to explain myself. No apology. Just image rehab." I didn't reply. Because here's the thing about healing, it makes you less available for bullshit. Once you realize peace isn't given, it's built, you stop inviting chaos to sit at your table. And mine was finally full. One Friday. My book club surprised me with a cake that said "Still Here." Still standing. Beans tried to sit on it. We laughed until we cried. That night, I posted one last update on Reddit. I made it. Not just through the surgery, but through the grief of realizing my family was never safe. I didn't get justice. I didn't get closure. I got something better. A life that's mine. The post blew up again. People called it cathartic. Powerful. A masterclass in walking away. Someone commented, "You didn't just survive. You outgrew them." And maybe that's the real twist. It wasn't that my family betrayed me. That part sucked. Yes. But it wasn't new. It was just louder this time. The twist was me finally choosing myself. Finally realizing that you don't have to keep bleeding just because they handed you the knife with a smile. Still. Closure has a way of testing your resolve. A month later, I got an email from a lawyer. My grandmother had passed. There was a reading of the will. Olivia and my mom were contesting it. Apparently, Nana had left me something they didn't want me to have. A house. My childhood home. The same one where I hid in closets during fights. Where I cried in my pillow. Wishing someone would hear me. Where I learned to disappear quietly. And now it was mine. I stood outside it last week. The shutters needed paint. The fence was leaning. The hydrangeas out front, my mom's favorites, were dying in the heat. I opened the door. Same creaky hinge. Same smell of old books and lemon floor cleaner. But the energy was different. Because for once, it was mine on my terms. I'm not sure what I'll do with it yet. Maybe I'll sell it. Maybe I'll turn it into a writer's retreat. Or maybe I'll do what Nana probably wanted all along, give a safe home to someone who never had one. Because now I know. Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when you're drowning and doesn't ask if you texted first. It's who sees you drowning and jumps in, not who lectures you about your stroke form. And it sure as hell isn't the people who save a dog while you're dying. The official deed arrived in a stiff manila envelope. My name was typed in bold across the top: Julia Mari Sanders, sole beneficiary of the property at 314 High Tree Lane. It didn't come with a note. No letter from Nana. No heartwarming message scrawled in shaky cursive. But it didn't need one. The house itself was the message. I hadn't stepped foot inside it in nearly a decade. And yet, every corner whispered things I'd forgotten. The scuffed floorboard outside the laundry room where I used to sit with my Discman and cry after fights. The closet door in my old bedroom that never quite shut where I once hid during a Thanksgiving brawl over my college plans. The patch of wallpaper behind the fridge I peeled back when I was 15. Hoping to find secrets. All I found was mold and silence. But now, it was mine. Olivia and my mom fought it. Of course. They claimed I manipulated Nana. That I smeared the family name for internet points. That I didn't deserve the house. Their lawyer tried to delay the transfer, citing emotional distress. But here's the thing about going viral, you get receipts. I submitted screenshots. Emails. Even that passive-aggressive letter my mom wrote after surgery. The judge didn't say much. Just signed the transfer and said, "Sometimes, the people who scream the loudest are the ones least willing to listen." Mic dropped. I didn't move in. Not right away. Instead, I spent the first week just sitting in it. Sleeping on an air mattress in the living room. Letting the silence fill my lungs like medicine. Sometimes it felt heavy. Other times, peaceful. I found old photos in the attic, me and Olivia as kids. Matching holiday sweaters. Grins too big for our faces. Before everything got so conditional. I didn't cry. I just looked. Then boxed them up. Not out of spite. But preservation. Some things deserve to be remembered. Just not repeated. One afternoon, while scrubbing mildew off the kitchen tiles, my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail. From Olivia. "I heard about the final ruling. I guess it's over now. I hope you're happy." She paused. "Mom's not doing well. She says you broke the family. That Nana would have been disappointed. I don't know. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For not being there. For everything." She hung up without asking me to call back. Progress. Maybe. Closure. Not kite. Here's the thing, no one tells you some apologies are just bookmarks. They don't end the story. They just mark the page where the other person finally started catching up. But I wasn't waiting around anymore. I didn't return the call. I didn't send the photos. I didn't rage post about it online. I just breathed in the scent of lemon cleaner and old wood. And decided what came next. The house needed work. The roof leaked. The water heater groaned like a ghost. The paint peeled like it was shedding old skin. But underneath, it had bones. Good ones. Like me. I guess. So I made a choice. I turned it into a creative sanctuary. Not a retreat. Not an Airbnb. But a literal. Lived in. Long-term space for women in recovery. Medical. Emotional. Financial. A place for people who've survived things they don't even know how to name yet. I called it the Still House. Because stillness is underrated. And survival deserves a soft place to land. The first resident was a 4-year-old named Maribel. She had lupus. Was couch surfing. Brilliant poet. Walked into the house and said, "It smells like safety." I almost cried. Beans took to her immediately. Which was high praise. That cat barely tolerates me. The second resident was a painter recovering from divorce and cancer. Then a doula who'd lost her housing after a bad landlord. Then a grad student who'd been disowned for coming out. The house filled with stories. Not trauma dumps. Not soapfests. Just realness. Healing. Music. Laughter. People donated supplies. Books. Art. Grocery gift cards. The same strangers who'd once DM'd me, "I believe you. I've been there." Some sent handwritten notes. This is what family should be. And one afternoon, while repotting a dying fern on the porch, I realized something. They were right. I did break the family. But not in the way my mom accused me of. I broke the cycle. I broke the unspoken contract that said, keep quiet to keep peace. I broke the silence that protected neglect. I broke the pattern of pretending cruelty was love. And in doing so, I built something new. This isn't a revenge story. Not really. It's a reclamation. Of space. Of voice. Of worth. Because I used to believe being the quiet one. The resilient one. Meant strength. But now I know sometimes strength is saying, you don't get to hurt me. Not again. Not anymore. Sometimes I still get emails. From people asking if I forgave them. From new readers who found the Reddit thread. From strangers who say your story saved me. And from Olivia. Occasionally. Never with blame. Never with clarity. Just little pings of regret floating in a sea I no longer swim in. But I don't hate her. I just don't owe her anything. Because love without accountability isn't love. It's leverage. And I'm done being leveraged. So here's where the story ends. The house stands. The light filters through cracked blinds. Beans is asleep in a sunspot. Down the hall. Someone is humming. Someone else is painting. Someone else is simply resting. And me. I'm sitting at a desk. Writing this. With breath in my lungs. Peace in my chest. And a name on the deed that finally feels like it belongs. The irony of surviving something that nearly killed you is that people expect you to go back to normal. But there's no going back. Only forward with scar tissue, where trust used to be. With a sharper sense of what peace really means. And with a throat that no longer swallows its own voice. It's been a year. The house is still standing. So am I. The still house now has 5 residents. We rotate chores. Share grocery lists. Watch trashy TV together on Thursdays. Once a month. We hold a potluck called Break and Bake. You bring a dish and one thing you've emotionally let go of. The living room wall is painted sage green. There's a bookshelf someone donated that's bursting with fiction. Memoir. Poetry. Next to it. A handmade sign from Maribel. Healing isn't linear. But community helps. God. Does it ever? One night, this past spring. I got a letter. No return address. Just my name. Scrawled in tight, cursive. Inside was a photo of me and Olivia. Age 7 and 9. We were in matching swimsuits. Sitting on the back porch steps, with popsicles. The photo had yellowed at the corners. Taped to the back was a sticky note. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better. It wasn't signed. I knew it was from my mom. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I didn't scan it for sincerity or read it 5 different ways. I just acknowledged it. A small gesture. Too late. But real. I placed the photo in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not to display. Not to destroy. Just to keep. Because you can make peace without reopening the wound. I still get messages from strangers. Some tell me their own stories about favoritism. Invisible illnesses. Being used until broken. Some just write one line, I didn't know anyone else felt this. And every time. I respond the same way. You're not alone. You're not crazy. And no. You're not too much. They were too little. Once. I thought survival meant toughing it out. Keeping quiet. Enduring. Now I know it means walking away. And choosing yourself loud enough that the echoes shake loose every lie they ever fed you. You don't have to stay where you were hurt to prove you're worthy of love. You don't have to carry shame that wasn't yours to begin with. You don't have to make yourself smaller to be accepted. That's not strength. That's slow erasure. A few weeks ago. A new resident arrived at the still house. Her name's Elise. Late 30s. Former teacher. Diagnosed with MS and abandoned by her fiancé when she got too needy. Her first night here. She barely spoke. Second night. She helped chop vegetables for dinner. By week 2. She organized a movie night. She hasn't said much about her past. She doesn't need to. We see each other. And that's enough. Sometimes I sit on the porch in the early morning. Tea and hunt. Watching the street come alive, kids biking. Birds yelling at squirrels. Someone walking their golden retriever. I used to think that kind of peace was for other people. The ones with normal families. 2-parent homes. Dinner table laughter. Now I know better. Now I know peace isn't inherited. It's built. Brick by brutal brick. Out of truth. Boundaries. And radical self-respect. People still ask if I forgave them. It's complicated. Forgiveness is not a door you open for someone else to walk through, it's a decision to stop pacing behind it. And I'm done pacing. I don't forgive to free them. I forgive so I can stay here. On this porch. In this moment. Unburdened by what they refuse to carry. As for Olivia. We haven't spoken in months. But I hear from mutual friends that she moved cities. Got a new job. Adopted another dog. And has slowly stopped playing the victim online. One sent me a screenshot from her Instagram. A photo of Luna sleeping. Captioned. Some bonds take longer to rebuild. Still working on mine. No tags. No subtweets. Just. Maybe growth. Maybe not. Either way. I wish her peace. But from a distance. Because I'm not angry anymore. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm not waiting for apologies. I'm just living. Loudly. Freely. With people who don't make me earn my worth or shrink to fit their comfort. If you're watching this because your family chose someone else, an addict, sibling, an image to uphold, a version of you that never existed, I want you to know something. You are not the problem. You're the truth they weren't ready for. You're the mirror they refused to look into. But most of all, you are worthy of love that doesn't ask you to bleed first. I survived illness. But more importantly, I survived erasure. And I didn't just rebuild my life. I built a lighthouse. For anyone who's been lost at sea. For anyone who's ever whispered. Does anyone see me? We do. I do. And we're here, lights on. Doors open. Waiting.